Well, first of all, good morning and Happy New Year to everybody. We just finished a frustrating season that had a few ups and too many downs. As Coach Loudoun talked about with you all on Monday, we're going to take this time to start a full evaluation of everything and look into the way we acquire players, look into the way we coach players, looking at the way the players prepare in the off season and in season, and make sure we correct the problems that occurred, make sure they don't happen again, and bring in the right people. I'd like to tell you there's a secret ingredient in football, but there really isn't. It's getting good players with good coaching and good chemistry, a little luck with injuries, and that's a successful formula. And that's what we're going to start addressing. And I'll answer any of your questions.
Bruce, we got the announcement this morning that you have mutually parted ways with Jim Haslett. Can you give us some insight into how that decision came about and when exactly it was made?
Jay and Jim had been talking the last few days, and this morning when they were talking, they decided it was the best way for both sides. And I appreciate Coach Haslett's work and what he's done for the Redskins, but I think it was the right decision.
With the operation of this, you've been here now, and you guys have finished last place, in all but one of those years. What has to change? What are you seeing that you need to do differently?
Well, first of all, we're doing some things differently this last year. We have a new coach, and there's been a new attitude in this building. And I think Jay has really brought this team together, and they've worked hard together, and they've fought hard together throughout the year. With that, there's going to be growth. And Mike, that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're analyzing why we took X player versus Y player, and we're looking at it. And the attitude and the core of the people is good, and it's healthy. We understand 4-12 is not acceptable to our great fans, and it's not acceptable to anybody in this building. And I feel awfully responsible for it. And we're going to make sure that we hold everyone accountable for everything that happened.
Bruce, in the 5 full seasons that you've been general manager, the Redskins' record is 28-52. And, of course, 5 full seasons is longer than either Marty Schottenheimer or Jim Zorn or Mike Shanahan was afforded to turn things around. So, given that it's a performance-based business, what would you point to, as reasons why you should return for a 6th season?
Well, the one thing I do love about the NFL, and I love in all of sports, it does have a scoreboard. And I don't have to pick up a newspaper or read the internet to find out how we did. We either win or lose as a team. And it is my responsibility to make sure that we have all the people in place throughout the organization doing their jobs. And as I said earlier, holding those people accountable. And that includes myself. And making sure that if there's a way we can do things to help this organization win, to get back to the basics of this great franchise, that's what we're going to do. And that's my job to help figure out that puzzle.
Along those lines, I'll be a little bit more blunt. Why should fans have confidence that anything's going to change? If the same people are back and everything's kind of intact, why should they feel confident that it will be any different next year?
Well, John, I think there is going to be changes. And I know Jay mentioned that he's going to make some changes and there's going to be some other changes. But that's part of the evaluation process right now. we're looking for the solutions to get the team back on track. You know, it seems like a long time ago when we won the division, and in football, I guess it's sort of like those doggy years. It does multiply with each year, but I've seen different people perform. I've seen the way people have evaluated talent. I've seen the way they've worked together, and I know this group will do it again.
Bruce, along those lines, the drafting, the talent evaluation, the scouting for this team has come up short for years now. What are the plans to address the scouting department and make sure that these are the issues, the depth problems, the finding the talent will be fixed?
Well, that's part of the evaluation process. The good news really is we have plenty of cap room for this offseason, and for the first time since I can remember, we have all of our draft choices. Last year's draft actually produced some pretty good players, and that's another good thing about this year. A lot of our young players got a chance to play. You know, didn't count on Brian Arakpo getting injured, but that allowed Trent Murphy a lot of play time. Didn't account for D'Angelo Hall being injured, but it got Breland on the field, and he got to play. We have high hopes for the two offensive linemen, so I think those players will grow and get better. And the key is to make sure we take advantage of the draft. In an NFL with a growing cap, free agency is not going to be your solution. It's going to come mostly through the draft. And if we did one thing right last year, we were tempted to make some trades to acquire a player or two, but we wanted to make sure that our draft was intact for 2015 and all the future years.
Bruce, people have talked about last place 6 of the last 7 years. In a league that's sort of built towards parity, that's sort of hard to do, to be last 6 out of 7 years in the division. And some would say it represents a fundamental flaw in how you guys do business. I'm wondering, what is that flaw and how do you fix it?
You know, when you look at a season and what we're doing now, we know who beat us last year, and we know why we lost some of the games that we did. The key is what we're going to do today and tomorrow about beating those same opponents next year. And to go back 3 years and explain why we blew a coverage on a play, I don't think that's the necessary part, is as much as what we're going to do tomorrow and the future to make sure it doesn't occur again.
I guess what I'm asking is more than just the games. I mean, when you look down in other franchises, when they have bad seasons, they might go 8-8, 7-9. They almost make the playoffs. I mean, here, when it goes bad, I mean, the wheels fall off. I mean, guys don't like this guy, and this guy doesn't like that guy, and it's 3-13. I just wonder, I mean, and that's been consistent, and I wonder what's going on. What is that flaw? What do you see in how the operation is being run that leads to that? And how do you fix that? Because that's bigger than just quarterback X or defensive coordinator Y, right?
Well, no, it goes back to what I said earlier. It's good players, good coaching, good chemistry. That is the winning formula. And, you know, as I said earlier, I was pleased that the team fought together. And winning the Philadelphia game, although it's just one win, was an important win. It's a division win. The previous year, we didn't win a division game. Our team was competitive in our division games, and the Dallas win in the Philly game, although only 2, is a step in the right direction, and our players fought in the division games. So I do trust the players were trying. I do trust that the coaches were preparing them. We do need to make, obviously, improvements across the board, and that's what today and the next month and the month after that will do.
Lastly, here about this time, I asked you
I pointed out to you guys finished last 5 of 6 years in the division and 7 of 10. It's now 6 of 7 and 8 of 11. And I asked you how you could possibly justify keeping Scott Campbell and the player personnel structure that you have in place given that sustained run of failure. I ask you again, are you prepared today to say to the Redskins fans that you're going to clean out the player personnel department, which is clearly underperformed?
You know, Jason, I sort of remember that question last year. Our personnel department is a hard-working group that evaluates players. I'd love to talk to everybody and show them all the grades that they put on all the players who are in the NFL. I'm not going to do that. That department is a responsibility that I take very serious, and it is my responsibility to make sure that we listen to the right people, listen to their grades, evaluate the talent properly, involve the coaching staff in it, and do the right thing. Once again, if you look at this year's draft, some of the players performed well, and the other ones who didn't get on the field, we think have a chance. We're going to analyze everything from the top down, and it's just not on the football side of the building. It's not just in the personnel side of the building. It's everything we do. We understand 4-12 is unacceptable. We absolutely do. And if there's anything we can do to get this team back where it belongs, we will do it. We'll do it.
You said you had quite a bit of cap room. Can you put a number on that for us? And then also, one thing this organization really hasn't done is wrap up, get players signed to extensions before they're up. Speaking specifically about Ryan Kerrigan, Trent Williams, will you talk to them about giving them extensions a year early with whatever cap room you do have?
Yeah, we will talk to those players because there is a core of young players in this league right now that on our team right now that we feel are a part of a bright future. And our cap room is because they haven't settled on what the final cap number is, but we'll have at least $20 million.
Bruce, Coach Haslett fell on the sword. Is that his entire staff? And will you then evaluate the entire coaching staff as to who comes back based on the work of their units?
Well, Coach Gruden is meeting with all of the assistant coaches, and he had just been with Jim the last 2 days specifically, and will make those determinations. We'll start the defensive coordinator search later today and start exploring some names and bring in some people for interviews. But Jay will make those decisions later on.
Bruce, how do you evaluate Jay's performance in his first season? Obviously a lot of ups and, like you said, a lot of downs for his first year, and specifically his relationship with Robert, whether at times he was too honest, too openly critical of how Robert performed and how you guys viewed that in management.
First of all, we talk about a lot of changes and things like that. One of the things that I like about Jay is he came into a very difficult situation. We were 3-13 the year before, and we did have some chemistry issues. I think Jay handled himself very well. As you all got to see, he's a very open and honest person. He's that way in the locker room. He's that way in a team meeting room. He has a very clear vision of what he wants to see out of his players, how he wants them to execute on the football field. And I think the learning process for the players who are coming back, knowing what Jay expects out of them, Jay knowing what to expect out of certain players, will bode well for the 2015 season.
Bruce, quick clarification before I ask my question to Doc's question. On the defensive staff, you didn't address, are there other assistants who have already been relieved of their duties?
Oh, they have? No.
Okay.
He just talked to Jim.
Is the plan to promote Raheem, or has that decision not been made?
That Jay will determine that. We're going to start interviewing, start the interview process or requesting permission to talk to people later today.
And then the question would be, in a lot of NFL front offices, we know what everybody does. Here, that's not the case, even for people who cover the team. You know, A.J. Smith's role as opposed to Doug Williams' role as opposed to your role. You kind of explained it as we all sit around the table and we eventually agree on something. Can you actually define what the key people in the front office do for us so that we at least know who's right? And occasionally, like, we don't know who to blame, who gets credit. It's not fair to everyone, but who does what? Like, what do they do?
All right. Well, the blame part, you can blame me. I'm responsible for what happens with this organization. It's my job, no matter who you are, with the Washington Redskins, to make sure we have the right people in their roles. Doug Williams works cross with pro and college. He has a keen eye for talent and is involved in all pro personnel meetings as well as all college meetings. AJ is a consultant. He lives in Del Mar, California. He's somebody I've known for a number of years. We worked together 30-some years ago. When he got let go of the Chargers, I said, if you have a few weeks, a year, and you want to come out, please do. Give us some insight into it. And so he sat in some meetings, and we've utilized his wisdom and experience.
You mentioned the draft a few times. Shortly before the most recent draft, you said that the fact that we don't have a first-round draft choice is because we have a quarterback. I'm wondering whether you still believe Robert Griffin is the solution at quarterback, and do you expect him to be your team's starter next season?
Well, the starter will be determined by the coach. But, you know, Robert has suffered a couple significant injuries in the last couple of years, and he is growing. He's 24 years old. At times you saw flashes of brilliance in 2012, and in this year he's learning a new system. As I said at the beginning of training camp, learning a new system, you're going to have to be patient with a young quarterback with Coach Gruden. And I think he got better as the year went on. The fact that he missed 7 games due to the injury didn't help. But his future's up to him and the surrounding cast we put around it. Too many times a quarterback or a receiver is blamed for something that might not all be their responsibility. And, you know, once again, that goes back into the different questions we talked about with personnel. We have to surround all of our players with talent in order for them to succeed at their highest levels.
Bruce, why is this organization in better shape now than when you inherited it 5 years ago?
I didn't hear the end of that.
Why is the organization in better shape now than when you inherited it 5 years ago?
Well, I think we've done a lot of things as an organization that have improved, but we're going to be based on our win-loss record on the football field. And it's hard to stand here and tell you that 4-12 was a good season. I couldn't even try to do that. It was frustrating as it can be, and week to week, it eats away at your core when you lose. But we're going to make sure everyone understands that that's not acceptable, and that everybody is working together in order to get success on the football field and off the football field. I do think our charitable foundation does a fantastic job. We're winning off the field, but we got to start winning on the field.
Bruce, good morning. Will you have an expanded role for A.J. Smith here, and how important is it to get somebody of his acumen, scouting, personnel background, and general manager experience with the Chargers in the building on a full-time basis?
Well, we're looking at every option we can and evaluating everything that we do. And A.J. will give us a report like everybody else is going to on suggestions and ideas and thoughts. And, you know, we're 72 hours from the end of our season, and this process is going to go on for a little bit.
What specific quickly, because Scott Campbell is gone for 4 months out of the year during the most critical juncture of the NFL season, do you think it's important to have somebody else besides yourself and besides Doug in the building on a daily basis to kind of oversee things, to help everybody kind of be on the same page personnel-wise?
You know, the technology today, if you're in Hawaii, you can watch the game tape as quickly as I can watch it here at Redskin Park. And because we have telephones in Hawaii, we can have a conversation immediately after the game. We are going to listen to the people who are in their roles, make sure we have the right people in their roles. Once again, if you go back game by game, it's pretty easy to describe what happened in the game and understand why we lost the game. And now we're trying to do the bigger picture of it to make sure that when we go into next season, we have the right people in the right places.
You took over personnel duties last year. You spoke of the grades the scouts gave that turned out to be very good. You said before the draft there were no holes on this roster, that you felt good going in, but a lot of these free agent signings didn't pan out this year. What went wrong in that player selection process?
Well, the free agents that we signed, we got a few of them got hurt. You know, D'Angelo Hall was a free agent we signed. Brian Arakpo was a free agent we signed, and the two linebackers we signed got injured. That's what you're going to have. It's unfortunate when it happens, and it's not an excuse. But because something didn't work doesn't mean it's not going to work. And we're going to find the players to add to this football team that we need. And when you say I said there's no holes, there's not a day that goes by that a personnel department doesn't meet about who's available at that time. And we're continuing to do that even today.
To follow up on some of those free agent signings, so Tracy Porter was an injury-prone guy when he came in here. You mentioned Sharpton and Arakpo obviously had health issues and was declining. Were there not red flags along that path that this could have been an avoidable situation?
Well, in hindsight, yeah, you surely would like to not sign someone who's going to get injured. But when you bring in a free agent, you give them a physical exam and you get a medical grade on them and you go forward. I'm not blaming the players for getting hurt. I mean, I feel for them. They wanted to play. They wanted to contribute. But when you get injured, you can't.
Bruce, we're going over this a lot, but you keep saying we're going to listen to the right people. We're going to talk amongst ourselves and listen to the right people. You've changed coaches multiple times. You've changed quarterbacks multiple times. You're bringing in free agents. The draft hasn't been working out. Yet you keep talking to these same people. You've got one guy in Hawaii. Winning teams don't do this. I don't understand why there's not changes at the highest levels that need to be made, or that you sit here and say, we're doing the right things. It's just going to change. You got to believe us.
Well, I don't know if I said that, and we don't have anybody in Hawaii. That was, yeah. The best I can explain to you is the evaluation process that we're doing right now might not have the answers for you. And we are evaluating it. And I'm absolutely going to take responsibility for the mistakes that we've made in the past. I will take responsibility for the 4-12 season.
Bruce, to expand on what Rob was saying.
Who said?
Oh, yeah. Well, to expand on what Rob's saying, you're saying that 4-12 is unacceptable. Save for the 2012 season, this has been the norm here. So my question to you is, wouldn't it be in your best interest, as well as the organization, to step out of pocket and do things totally different, where you're talking to football people around the league that have no inkling of what's happened here or what goes on here, so that way you guys can start fresh? And don't you owe that to the fans to do that?
Oh, we owe it to the fans to look into any possible addition to this staff at any role in this organization. And that's what we're doing. We're evaluating everybody's job, everybody's role. And if we can add people to the Washington Redskins who are going to help us win, we're absolutely going to do that.
Bruce, when it comes to Robert, you go back to the Minnesota game when he comes back from his dislocated ankle, and regardless of what ended up happening, he ended up playing in that game. The decision made at that time, first I ask, was that Jay's decision or was that a higher decision that either you or Dan made? And also, do you trust your coach enough to allow him the autonomy he needs to make decisions regarding this football team when it comes to on-the-field stuff? Because it seems like, regardless of whether or not it's true or not, there's a lot of discussion that he is obviously not in favor of having this quarterback out here, but you and Dan seem to be so. Where do you guys stand on that, and where do you give the autonomy to Jay to allow him to make those kinds of decisions?
Well, Jay has the autonomy. Jay makes that decision. Jay decides who plays on game day at every position on this football team. He decides who's inactive on this football team on game day. So he has that authority, and he's had it since his job interview, as did everybody that we also interviewed for the job.
Do you trust him enough to make those decisions? Do you trust him enough to continue to make those decisions?
Absolutely.
Bruce, just kind of springboarding off some of the line of questioning earlier, you've talked a lot about getting the right players, coaches, chemistry, that kind of stuff. Do you perceive a culture problem within the organization?
No, I see a team that really wants to win, and we make too many losing plays in games. And part of the good chemistry that I think Jay has brought to the team is the honesty of what happens in a football game, the honesty of what happens in a Wednesday and Thursday practice, about finding that type of a game-ready performance on a Thursday. And he's not the first coach in the history of this NFL to have a losing season in his first year. And we're not the first team to have back-to-back losing seasons in the NFL. And it'll happen again. Do I believe he's the right leader? Absolutely. I believe he's the right leader. And I believe the players believe he's the right leader. We just have to make sure we augment the roster with the right players and give him the talent that he needs.
Bruce, you keep on talking about 4-12, and then you make mention of back-to-back losing seasons. But as we've been trying to point out here through all the questions, we're talking about more than a decade of failure. Now, not all of it's on you, granted, but a lot of it is on you. And I want to go back to what Michael talked about the free agent signings. You say that everything's open for evaluation, you're going to look at different things, but Brian Orakpo, to franchise tag him, was a highly questionable decision at best. You gave Jason Hatcher $10.5 million for 1 year, guaranteed, a guy who had only had one big season who was 32. I mean, if you say everything's open to evaluation, but if everything's open to evaluation and you keep making the same mistakes, how is anything going to change?
Jason, I don't believe you were a fan of the Orakpo deal. No, I'm giving you credit for that. I had great hopes for Brian this year, and as did Brian. And unfortunately, he got injured.
But Bruce, before he got injured, he did not play. I mean, wait, no, hold on for a second. Because Michael pointed out to you that that was signings that did not work. My point about the Orakpo thing was, before he got hurt, he had half a sack. So you can't just say it was just that Orakpo got injured. He didn't play well. There's a difference.
He didn't have a full season to play. Jason, I look at players probably differently than you do. I listen to their concerns. I listen to what their dreams are for themselves, and I root for the players who are Washington Redskins. I root for every single one of them to do well. I understand that some players have limitations and some players can't perform well at different times, but we thought it was the right thing to bring Brian back. He was a good teammate. He's been a good performer for the Washington Redskins, and we thought it was the right decision. I'm not going to go back and second-guess what I would have done if I had known he was going to get hurt and have a half a sack at the time he got hurt. Jason Hatcher we felt could add to our pass rush, and which he did. He's talented because we had other depth issues. He played on some downs that we didn't go into the season counting for him to play, but he's been a great addition to this football team. He's a good leader on this football team, and I hope he has a great career with the Washington Redskins.
Bruce, last year you said part of the problem was that you all probably felt better about yourselves than what you really were. With no talk of any drastic changes or your methods or anything like that, is that still a problem? Do you guys, are you close? You said you were closer to 10-6 than you were 3-13. Do you all see a difference? Are you guys, if you're not doing anything drastically different, where is that assessment of yourselves?
I don't know if I.
You said you were closer to 10-6 than you were 3-13.
But I'm never going. I respect the game too much to say we would have, could have won certain games without winning them. There are going to be changes. I don't think I've hid from that, and I don't think Coach Gruden told you anything different. There are going to be changes in the way we do business.
Bruce, I have two quick ones.
You keep on saying we're going to listen to the right people and everything, but if nothing in your front office and your methods are changing, what are those changes? And if you're listening to the same people and the same wrong decisions are being made year and year again, where is the change?
Mike, I believe I said we're taking this time to evaluate everything. It's been 72 hours from the Dallas game, and this evaluation is going to continue for some time. And we're going to make whatever changes are necessary to do what can help this franchise win. That is our job. That is our only job, is to help this franchise win. And we will do what is necessary to do that.
Bruce, two quick ones for you. All season long, Coach Gruden said that he spoke to you about the quarterback decision, that you guys would have conversations during the week about who was going to start. So you obviously have input in who the quarterback on this team is going to be. So is the quarterback for 2015 on this roster, is Robert Griffin III the future? Do you believe he is going to be the future?
Well, first of all, Coach Gruden and I, we both have open doors, and we talk to each other. If I said once or twice a day, that would be an understatement. So we talk all the time about every position on the team. Yeah, Robert's under contract for us for 2015. I do believe he's a young man who has shown promise and can play in this league. I think being 1 year into Coach Gruden's system is going to help him develop. I think he's going to know better what to do in the months of January to April before he's able to come into the building and start to work. I think there's a complete understanding between the two of them on what needs to improve in his play to help us win.
Do you think he can win the way Jay Gruden wants to run this offense? Do you think Robert Griffin III has the talent and the skills and the maturity to run the offense that Jay wants?
Yes.
Bruce, a couple things. Then, if we're wrapping it up, let's do a lightning round. It's going to be a while. Why don't you talk more? Why don't you talk more? You haven't talked since August 12th.
Well,
the GM of the Jets and the Giants had mid-season press conferences while their organizations were going off the rails. Why don't you talk to us more often?
First of all, and I'm glad you asked the question.
Thank you.
And I think I've talked about this last year with y'all.
Yeah, but I haven't talked to you since.
There's one voice during the football season, and that's the voice of the head coach. And I can't know everything he has said to you at a press conference, and he could say we're going to run a wing punt formation this game, and I'm going to say we're not, and he's going to say he is. The coach is the spokesman for an NFL team during the season. And I would imagine 25, 30 teams probably think the absolute same way. I do talk to the fans, though. I talk to the fans on a regular basis. I know I talk more than Chris Cooley has call-ins on his show. Through different events, whether it's a town hall or meeting them in the parking lots or communicating with them. Our fans do know a lot of my thoughts, and I've had those conversations with them. I'm available to talk almost all the time. I'm here every day. But when you want to ask me a question in December, is the coach's job secure? Give us this, give us that. That's never been a winning formula for anyone, because all it does is fuel the speculation.
And then my other thing would be, just coach me out of this school of thought.
Okay.
If I'm running a restaurant for a bunch of years that's not going well, I'm probably in trouble. But let's just say I keep running the restaurant. I'm going to find a sous chef somewhere, and I'm bringing him in to run my restaurant, who's running a really good restaurant. There's teams that need GMs right now that are flying to Seattle, that are flying to Green Bay, that are flying to Baltimore. Why wouldn't you just go to one of those organizations, find someone who's working under Ozzie or one of the best GMs in football, and say, come help us? This team they've tried a lot of things. They've never tried that. Why is that?
Like, I don't know what you're saying they never have
Well,
done.
they've never named a general manager who was a number 2 under one of the prolific general managers in the sport, who learned everything in one of the fluid organizations in the sport.
What was Charlie Casserly?
Well, I'm just saying recently, in the 20-plus years of...
Well, you said... I know. You
Okay,
said
never is my life. I'm 26. The Redskins haven't won during that time.
In a generation.
Since the early 90s, when the Redskins were winning.
Well, we're going to look at anything we can do to help us win.
Right, Bruce, along those lines, you talked about doing anything. You have a lot on your plate as a team president. You brought up the functions you go to and all that. Do you feel that it would be better served to just have one role? And if after this evaluation you find that it would be that way, would you be willing to bring in someone as a GM to oversee the football operations?
You know, John, I don't mean to be repetitive, but if we can find a winning formula that's going to help this team win on the football field, we'll absolutely do it. And that includes me. If it meant mowing that lawn out there every Tuesday, I would mow the lawn every darn Tuesday. I want the burgundy and gold to win. That is my job and my responsibility to try and figure out how to do that.
Do you feel you have too much on your plate as president and GM, I guess?
No, it's not too much on your plate. That's not it.
Is there anything else you want to get across here? Because I feel like sometimes after these happen, after these press conferences, this happens sometimes, where you look back, you read the paper, you see on the news, it's not at all the message you wanted to get across. So what do you want to make sure you get across to every single Redskins fan out there who's disappointed?
No, we hear them. We hear them. And I get to talk to them about their disappointment. And over the next month or so, we'll have this going in the right direction.
Bruce, since I'm not sure when I'm going to get to talk to you again, question going forward regarding Richmond. Are you planning to return there for training camp? I know there have been some contractual issues. They haven't exactly been able to pay up and meet their end of the bargain. And also, Gruden said that he's going to evaluate how things are run here this offseason. And given the fact you guys have only won 7 games after training down there, would you consider a change?
Well, but Coach Gruden and no different than Coach Shanahan likes the idea of going away for training camp. And the environment that we created in Richmond for the fans and the team is a good environment. I don't think you can blame training camp on what happened the last 2 regular seasons. So, yeah, our plan is to be back in Richmond.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you. At appropriate times. At appropriate times.
We're done.
Okay, well, come on. He got mad last time.
That's 9 questions. I mean, we should all be able to ask questions. There was a hesitancy once Robert was benched to bring him back. And I'm wondering, where were you in the decision-making process on bringing him? Why was there that hesitancy there? And from your perspective, did he need to get back sooner? What was your advice to Jay? What was your recommendations to Jay to get him back in the game? Or did you make those recommendations?
When are you talking about?
He was benched. When he came back, there seemed to be a hesitancy to put him back in the game until Colt McCoy got injured. My question is, did you agree with that, the way that thing went down, and would you have liked to have seen Robert get more reps, as the season came to an end?
No, we believed in what Coach Gruden was doing, and he was looking out for the interest of all 53 players on game day, and the players. But he put him in because Colt got injured in the game. I mean, I didn't.
But this is your franchise quarterback, the guy you guys got.
Well, I don't think, but I don't believe there was a hesitancy. We only dressed 2 quarterbacks, but when Colt got injured in the game, he put him in.
You guys had a game where you lost to the Rams 24-0. You didn't get in the game. It just seemed
Oh, you're talking about previous games. That's a coach's prerogative.
How did you feel about it? I mean, what was your? I mean, obviously there was a discussion on your franchise quarterback, the guy that you guys tapped as your franchise quarterback. My question: where were you on? What was your thought process on? Should we have Robert in there getting all the reps he needs to get better in this system? I mean, when that conversation happened around the table, what was your recommendation to Jay, to Dan, to whatever? Or was there no discussion at all?
No, Jay explained what his goals were, as he does each week for the upcoming game, and what he thought would give us the best opportunity to win. And we said, do what you think is right.
And you were comfortable with
Yes.
the franchise quarterback sitting on the sidelines in a 3-13, 3-10 season at the time, I guess, or not getting reps?
If that's what the coach believed in, yes.
Thank you, Bruce. Dave,
Thank you all.
question?